My channel has been picking up over the last couple of months, but it's time to pull out the big guns. Hello Luiginoids, this is LuigiXRules doing yet another challenge video. In this one I'm jumping on the Pokemon challenge bandwagon and seeing how hard it would be to beat Pokémon X with only one Inkay. Inkay is an interesting Pokemon because of its ability, Contrary. Contrary makes all stat changes to the Pokemon reverse, so that something like Tail Whip will now raise defense, and something like Defense Curl will now lower defense. Other than that though, Inkay actually has pretty bad stats, and while it does get decent type coverage through TMs, most of those moves are special. Since Inkay's special attack stat is so low, those aren't really viable options. On top of that, its typing gives it no resistances and a weakness to the new fairy type, as well as a 4 times weakness to the bug type. Considering the first gym is the bug gym, this should be an interesting one. Here are the rules for this challenge. I'm only allowed to use Inkay in battle at all times. However, I will need other Pokemon in the party to use mandatory HM, so there will be other Pokemon in my party sometimes. I also can't use items in battle unless they are Pokeballs or held items. Items outside of battle are completely allowed. No glitches or exploits are allowed either. With that out of the way, let's get started. To start off, I used the Universal Pokemon Randomizer to replace Fennekin with Inkay, since it can do that now. I replaced Fennekin so that our main rival, Serena, would have Froakie, maybe the toughest one for us to fight. Surprisingly, Inkay actually matches up against the starters pretty well. It has Night Slash for Delphox, Superpower for Greninja, and Pluck for Chestnut. I decided to name her Inkay, because why not? She has a sassy nature, which raises special defense and lowers speed. Realistically, this is one of the worst natures I could have gotten, but it was taking a while just to get an Inkay with Contrary, so I just took one of the first ones I got. Even though Inkay has a super effective move against Chespin, she still doesn't end up winning. That goes to show how weak she is. Santaloon Forest isn't too difficult, luckily, as Inkay gets Foul Play at level 6. This move has 95 base power, which is a ton for this early in the game. On top of that, most of the trainers in wild Pokemon will just use Leer or Growl or some other move that would normally lower a stat, but instead raises it because of Contrary. Once I get to Santaloon City, I have to take on the trainer in front of the Bug Gym. It's really easy, although that's probably because I grinded off all the trainers in the area until I was level 11. Then it's on to the Bug Gym. Despite what you may think, the Bug Gym wasn't too challenging because it's early enough so that they don't have Bug-type moves, with one exception, Viola's Vivillon. But we'll get to that. First though, let's start this battle where it begins, with the Surskit. I decided to first use Swagger, as Foul Play's damage increases based on the opponent's attack stat, including any stat changes. Luckily, the Surskit often wastes a turn with Water Sport, so it really isn't a problem. The Vivillon, on the other hand, was quite a nuisance. On my first attempt, I kept using Peck because it was super effective, although Foul Play probably dealt more damage. But I kept using Harden, so we weren't really doing much to each other. When I thought I was almost done, Viola used a potion. After a few more traded blows, Viola wises up and uses Infestation. Even though Infestation doesn't have a lot of base power, we're weak, and it's quad effective, so it obviously takes us down. After some grinding on Route 22, I go back to try and fight her again, but it turns out I got pretty lucky on my first attempt. On most of my other attempts, Viola decides to be smart and use Infestation. I doubt anyone has had trouble with Infestation before this video. Luckily, after a few attempts, she just decides to spam Tackle, so I win. Well then. The next important battle takes place in Lumio City against Professor Sycamore. He has each of the 3 Kanto starters, although they're not very difficult. Bulbasaur goes down in 2 pecks, Squirtle takes 3 Foul Plays because it used to withdraw, and Charmander just buffed my attack and accuracy, so we went down in 2 hits of Foul Play. Afterwards, I get to pick one of those starters. I chose... Oh. I swear, all I did was change Inkay to be a starter. Nothing else has changed, so I don't know why these starters were changed. It's not like it matters, since I wasn't going to use any of them anyway. So I just chose Clink and went on my way. On the way to Route 5, this guy gives us O powers. I'm not going to use them, just because I'm not 100% sure how they work. Tierno went down pretty easily, so there's not too much to talk about until the double battle on Route 7. The battle actually goes by pretty smoothly, as the opponent's Pokemon are still pretty weak. Trevor does have a Flabebe, and it does know a fairy move, but luckily Trevor's an idiot and uses it on Serena's Fletchling. On the way to Luminous Cave, I realized I can't even defeat some of the trainers on Route 8. That's not a good sign. Inside of Luminous Cave, Team Flare isn't too scary. Inkay doesn't have anything to take care of Dark types easily yet, but it's early enough to where that's not really a problem. Next up is the Rock Gym, but first I take the Sail Fossil. I know if I didn't say what I took, you'd all ask. Actually, now that I think about it, everyone asks anyway. Comments are good for the YouTube algorithm. Of course, I wouldn't know that, as I don't get many comments, but still, comment. The Rock Gym actually proves to be pretty difficult. Because rock types typically have pretty decent defense, Inkay can't hurt them much. In some battles, I had to resort to using Hypnosis just so I could survive. Grant himself took quite a few tries because Amara knows Thunder Wave. Because of that, I often ended up facing Tyrant while paralyzed, and between that and its bite, I rarely ended up hitting him. I decided to grind on Route 10 for a bit, which was risky considering the fairy types that are there like Snubble. After a few attempts at level 27 though, I decided to use Hypnosis so that Amara doesn't use Thunder Wave on me. Finally, I got a run where Hypnosis hit, Amara slept for 2 turns, and I got the range so that I one-shotted her. After that, Inkay outsped Tyrant, so 2 more foul plays finished the battle, earning us our 2nd badge. A few of the trainers on Route 10 were somewhat problematic, but I got through it and got to Geosedge Town, where I had to fight Corina and her 2 Lucarios. It took a few tries, and on my successful attempt, I got a crit on both Lucarios. It's a good thing too, because I doubt Inkay could have survived an attack after it buffed its attack by 3 stages. Glittering Cave was actually kind of annoying. I had to skip some of the trainers because they could actually beat me. One of them has an Absol who can take us out pretty easily. Inkay still doesn't really have anything to take care of dark types, so they pose a pretty big threat. Luckily, this trainer is optional, so I skip him. Next up is the first battle with Serena. For those who don't know, Serena ends up becoming our main rival, so this battle will show how she'll be for the rest of the challenge. And it's not looking good. While our first Pokemon is Meowstic, who is a Psychic type, it has a Fairy move. It also tends to use Fake Out, so it racks up damage pretty quickly. Inkay can get past it, but next up is Absol. Remember 5 seconds ago when I said I couldn't handle Absol? Well, the same thing applies here. Now we've got 2 options. Either get good luck with Hypnosis, or grind up Inkay until she can outspeed either the Meowstic or the Absol. If Inkay didn't have a nature that decreased speed, this might not have been that much of a problem, but since she does, it is. I decided to try Super Training so that I could get my base speed stat up. Super Training allows you to increase your base stat over time by hitting balloon-shaped like Pokemon. It's really weird, but it gets the job done. After what felt like forever, I finally got a run at level 36 where Meowstic uses Light Screen instead of Disarming Voice. This left me with even more HP for Absol, who I decided to use Hypnosis on. It hit, so I took him out and could face Frogadier. Frogadier outspeeds though, so I thought I was for sure done. But on his second attack he uses Quick Attack, assuming it would knock me out, but I survived on 4 HP, giving me the victory. After that is the Fighting Gym, which wasn't really very challenging because Inkay has Pluck. Before fighting Corina though, I decided to grind to level 39 to learn Psycho Cut. This move is a physical psychic move, so Inkay will probably get some use out of it. Time for the gym leader battle. Corina's first Pokemon is Mienfoo, who uses Fake Out but doesn't contribute much else. Next up is Hawlucha. He deals quite a bit of damage with Flying Press, and he almost took me out, but after a bit of back and forth, he goes down. Last up is Machoke, who Inkay outsped and one-shot. Even with Psycho Cut, I almost lost. That just goes to show how weak Inkay really is. The next major battle is the next rival battle, but first we've got this battle with Corina, where she forces us to use one of her Lucarios. I'm not sure whether to count this as failing the run. I mean, I am using a Pokemon other than Inkay in battle, but if I count this, then all challenge runs of Pokemon X would be an automatic failure. Let me know if you think this should count in the comments. Okay, time for the second Serena battle. I could barely get past the last one, so the same fight but harder isn't going to be much different. Even though I was a few levels higher than last time, I'll still take it out easily. Time to grind! I decided to grind on Route 13, but the only Pokemon that gave decent experience was Dugtrio. It was pretty slow going, but I probably had to do it eventually. Plus, the more grinding I do, the closer I get to learning Superpower. Finally, at level 44, I got a run where Meowstic used Light Screen instead of Disarming Voice, so Inkay had more HP for Absol and Frogadier. She took Meowstic out easily, and for some reason, Serena just decided to spam Quick Attack for the rest of the battle. She could have easily defeated me if she used, I don't know, Slash or something, but nope. Next up is the Grass Gym, which goes by pretty smoothly because a lot of the Pokemon in the gym are part Poison type. Before long, I get to Ramos, but I feel like I should show you how Inkay's stats are doing. You'll notice I've equipped the Sky Plate so that Pluck deals more damage. Her highest stat is a 74 in attack, and all of the rest are below 67. These are atrociously bad stats for a near level 50 Pokemon. I'm not sure how this run is going to end up. Anyway, time to fight Ramos. Surprisingly, even Jumpluff can deal really good damage with its acrobatics. And since it's really fast, there's no way we're avoiding it. The next few turns are spent using Pluck while Ramos heals, but eventually Jumpluff goes down. Next up is Gogoat, who uses Bulldoze to deal a bit of damage, but other than that, he went down easily. Last up is Weepinbell, but because Inkay has Psycho Cut, it's not a problem at all. With that, we've obtained the plant badge and can head on to the power plant. There's a lot of required trainers in the power plants, and with their dark types, it would normally be an issue for Inkay. However, since I got Superpower inside, it wasn't hard at all. Oh yeah, I should probably explain why superpower is so good. Do you remember how Contrary reverses all stat changes, including self-inflicted ones? Well, that includes the attack and defense debuffs from superpower. That means, whenever I use superpower, Inkay's attack and defense actually raise one stage, making her even stronger. Trust me, we're going to need it. Next up is the electric gym. Again, the gym itself isn't really a problem, so I'll just skip ahead to Clement. He starts off with the Molga and uses Volt Switch, sending in his Magneton to take my Psycho Cut. One superpower takes it down though, so it's on to Helioptile. He goes first and uses Thunderbolt, almost taking me out. Psycho Cut turns out to just barely not be a one-shot, so Clement uses a few Hyper Potions before taking me out with another Thunderbolt. I decided to try a few more times, and on the third try I used Superpower preemptively, knowing that Emolga's going to use Volt Switch. It turns out though that Magneton has Sturdy, so it doesn't get taken down. Because I knew Clement was going to heal, I used Psycho Cut. Then I used Superpower again to take it out. Thanks to the extra attack from the second Superpower, Helioptile goes down in one Psycho Cut. Finally, he sends out Emolga again, and although he goes first, Aerial Ace doesn't do very much, so I can one-shot him with Psycho Cut. Next up is the Serena battle, and it actually went pretty well this time. Because Inkay has Superpower now and her Frogadier evolved into Greninja, I have a super effective move against every one of her Pokemon, making this battle end really quickly. The next gym, though, is something to be worried about. Gen 6 was the first generation to have the Fairy type, so of course they had to include a Fairy gym. And since one of the two types Inkay is weak to is Fairy, this might be a pain. Let's just cut to the gym leader. She sends out Mawile first, which is good because Superpower is neutral against her. It only does about half, so it's a 2-shot. Next up is Mr. Mime, who uses Reflect so that I don't do much damage, even with my attack raised 2 stages. Eventually, she takes me down with Dazzling Gleam. Also, yes, Mr. Mime can be female. I tried a few more times, but I could never get past Mr. Mime, so it's time to grind. Grinding on Route 14 feels like it takes forever, but I've got to be strong enough to take on Mr. Mime. In case you were curious, Valerie's next Pokemon is Sylveon, so I have to be sure Inkay can handle her too. At level 53, I try a few more times. Mawile is still a 2-shot with Superpower, and Mr. Mime is still trouble. She uses Reflect, and I decided that Pluck would deal more damage with the Sky Plate. Inkay can survive Dazzling Gleam, but with that Reflect, there's no way she can defeat Sylveon unless she gets a crit. Well, that was pretty lucky, but with such a bad Pokemon, it's either get lucky or grind a ton. I'd rather the quicker option. The next few areas all go by pretty smoothly. Inkay is so over-leveled at this point that Team Flare is pretty easy now. The Pokeball Factory, Route 15, and Frost Cavern all go by without much to talk about. So let's just get to the next Serena battle. The battle begins like normal. She sends out Meowstic, uses Fake Out and Disarming Voice, and I kill it with Foul Play. Next though, she sends out Flareon, which is a one-shot, but only with a critical superpower. Then she sends out Greninja, and he finishes me off with Dark Pulse. Cool. After a bit of grinding, I decide to go to the move relearner and get Night Slash. Night Slash is essentially Psycho Cut but Dark type. While it has less base power than Foul Play, it no longer relies on the opponent's attack stats, so it should help out. Now that I had Night Slash, I decided to try to fight Serena again. This time, instead of using Fake Out, she decides to lead with Shadow Ball. I'm not sure why she just now decided to use it, but it deals more damage than Disarming Voice, so she should really just use Shadow Ball. Sadly, Night Slash is just barely not enough to take her out, so she gets off of Disarming Voice before she goes down. Next is Flareon, and I decided to try Night Slash again, and it actually isn't a one-shot, even with a crit. He gets off a bite, but Psycho Cut finishes him off. Greninja is next, and he just uses Water Shuriken this time, even though we saw earlier that Dark Pulse definitely dealt more damage. Luckily for me, he only fires off 2 Water Shurikens, although I think Inkay could have survived it if it hit 5 times. I use Superpower to take him out. Last is Absol, but Inkay outspeeds and one-shots him, giving me the victory. I was confident going into the Psychic Gym because, Inkay's invincible to Psychic types, and for the most part it was. However, Olympia actually managed to pose a threat. Her first Pokemon is Sigilyph, who outspeeds and uses Reflect. Why do so many Pokemon have this move? Because of this, Night Slash doesn't really do much. After a few turns of going back and forth, Inkay beats her, but she puts up another Reflect, so I still don't deal much damage. And that's a problem, because Slowking uses Yawn, putting Inkay to sleep. Surprisingly, Inkay actually manages to beat Slowking, but up last is the Meowstic, who outspeeds and finishes me off with Shadow Ball. I grind for a bit, and at level 60 I come back. Sigilyph still uses Reflect, but this time I get a crit with Night Slash, so that's already a lot of damage circumvented. Then I get another crit on Slowking, taking her out in one shot too. Meowstic is out last, and she starts with Fake Out, because of course she does. Then she decides to start spamming Calm Mind. After Olympia runs out of Hyper Potions, she does use Shadow Ball, but it's too little too late, and Meowstic ends up going down. Well, that took longer than expected. Now for the final Team Flare fights. There's a couple of battles to go through, so bear with me for a bit. First up is Lysander, who leads with Mienfoo. He goes down easily, so it's on to Gyarados. It has Intimidate, but Contrary makes it raise my attack. It's faster, and deals pretty significant damage with Aqua Tail, but I just barely got through. Pyroar's out next, and he finishes me off with Fire Blast. Okay then. Fire Blast has a chance to miss, so I figured I could try until it does. Luckily, that happened on my next attempt, so it's time to take on this last Pokemon, Murkrow. I used Night Slash, forgetting that superpower would be neutral, but it doesn't matter because Night Slash got a crit, handing me the victory. There's a lot of story in Lysander Labs, but the only thing relevant to the challenge is that I pick up the black glasses, so I'll just move on to the battle with the Zerosic. Despite only having 2 Pokemon, he actually puts up a fight. For one, his Crobat knows X-Scissors, so Inkay takes a lot of damage at the start. After Crobat though, he sends out Malamar, Inkay's evolved form. Zerosic then decides to use our own strategy against us and spam Superpower. Sadly, Inkay just barely couldn't take it out. With one more level, that shouldn't be an issue. I decided to grind off the trainers around Illumio City because they have the chance to give you stuff like elixirs. Sadly, their Pokemon are pretty weak, so it took a while. So long, in fact, that I didn't even end up leveling up. Instead, I tried to see if I could take out Malamar with a damage range, and as it turns out, I could. So that's something I don't have to worry about anymore. We're not done with Team Flare yet, though. We've still got to fight Lysander 2 more times. Before the next one, I decided to grab some PB-ups that were lying around so that I could use Superpower more without having to go back to the Pokemon Center. Alright, time for Lysander. Between the last battle, he decided to evolve his Mienfoo into a Mienshao. He's faster than Inkay, but he just wastes his turn with Swords Dance, so I one-shot him. Gyarados and Pyroar go the same as last time. I almost get taken out by Gyarados, but I don't, and Pyroar misses with Fire Blast, letting me one-shot him and get my boosts. Lastly out is his newly evolved Honchkrow, but since I finally realized this superpower would be neutral, I take him out in one hit, finishing the battle. The rest of the Team Flare hideout goes by pretty smoothly since most of their Pokemon are dark or poison type. Before we get to Lysander though, I've still got to take on Xerneas. I decided to catch it immediately with my Master Ball. Finally, it's time to finish off Lysander. Or I would say that, but Xerneas was immediately forced into the first slot of my party. Well, there's not much I could do about that. Actually, I think if you have a full party, then you can send Xerneas to a box. It doesn't really matter though. I just forfeited the battle because you can do that, apparently. You can call this cheating if you want, I don't care. Alright, time for the first real attempt. Lysander's team is actually pretty much the same, so the battle plays out mostly like the last one. Mienshao wastes his turn with Swords Dance, Pyroar, who's now second, uses Fire Blast, but we can take it. And, oh, since Pyroar is a slightly higher level now, he can withstand a superpower. Time to grind some more. After taking on some more trainers I hadn't fought before, I go back and fight Lysander again. Not only is superpower now a one-shot, but his Fire Blast missed, meaning I have more health for the rest of his team. After Pyroar comes Honchkrow, who's also a one-shot with superpower. Lastly is Gyarados, but because of his Intimidate, Inkay's raised attack, and the fact that Lysander Mega Evolved him, he easily goes down in one hit. That Aqua Tail did a lot of damage though. I'm not sure if I would have survived if the Fire Blast hit. Now that Team Flare's done, it's time to finish the gym challenge. First though, Professor Sycamore wants to battle us. I was worried that he might have the fully evolved forms of the starters that for some reason got replaced earlier, but no. He starts off with Venusaur, who is surprisingly not a one-shot. He uses Worry Seed, which is actually very smart. I guess he's not a professor for nothing. Anyway, next out is Blastoise. Ordinarily, I would have used Superpower, but since I don't have Contrary anymore, I instead go for Psycho Cut. It takes a few turns, but he goes down. Last up is Charizard, but he takes me out with a Slash and a Flame Burst. I tried a few more times to see if I could get Venusaur to not use Worry Seed, but when he doesn't, he usually goes for Petal Dance, which deals way more damage than his other Pokemon's attacks. Eventually, though, I get a run where he uses Petal Blizzard instead of Petal Dance, which only does about half. Then, Blastoise takes 2 superpowers to take down. Charizard's up last again, but he just uses Slash so I can one-shot him with Psycho Cut. We're getting close to the end now, but most of the remaining important trainers are a bit of a pain. This next part I've been worried about since the beginning. The triple rival battle, where I have to fight Shauna, Tierno, and Trevor all in a row with only one heal after Tierno. That's 9 Pokemon in a row. Let's just get started with this. First up is Shauna, who sends out Delcatty first. She just goes down in one superpower though, so it's on to Goodra. Even with the buffs though, he's just barely not a one-shot, so he can get off a Dragon Pulse. Last up for Shauna is Chestnut, and although she hurts me a bit with Spiky Shield, Pluck is 4 times effective against her, so she goes down easily. In case you're wondering, this is why I haven't gotten rid of Pluck yet. Clearly Shauna's not a problem, but let's see if Tierno is. His first Pokemon is Talonflame, who outspeeds and uses Swords Dance. Sadly, it's a new battle, so Inkay doesn't have the stat buffs anymore. This means Psycho Cut only does about half. Then Talonflame defeats me with Acrobatics. On my next attempt, Chestnut doesn't use Spiky Shield, so I can just about survive 2 acrobatics from Talonflame. Next is Roserade, who outspeeds and finishes Inkay off. Okay, this clearly isn't going to work. I'm either going to need incredible luck with the Quick Claw I finally decided to pick up, or grind until I can outspeed. I think I'll do the latter. I decide to grind off the Trainer's Terminus Cave. It takes a while, but it levels me up eventually. Eventually, all the way at level 74, Superpower has the ability to one-shot Goodra. So it's on to Tierno again. Inkay has enough HP remaining now to survive Talonflame, and she outspeeds Roserade now, meaning I'm finally at Tierno's last Pokemon. It's just a Crawdaunt though, so one Superpower can take it down. Finally, Trevor heals us and we fight him. His first Pokemon is Raichu. He goes first and immediately paralyzes Inkay with Thunderbolt. I use Psycho Cut even though Superpower probably would have dealt more damage, and it's nearly a one-shot. Sadly, on the next turn, Inkay is paralyzed, but then her Quick Claw activates on the next turn and she takes the Raichu out. Next out is Florges, who instantly finishes off Inkay with Moonblast. Maybe if I'm not paralyzed I can outspeed her? After a few attempts where I either didn't get to Raichu or got paralyzed by him, I decide to grind off the 3 rivals. Yes, you have to fight all 3 of them in a row, even if you already beat them. Anyway, it's good experience, and I don't really need money, so I kind of wish I would have done this in the first place. Finally, at level 76, I get back to Raichu, and he doesn't paralyze me with Thunderbolt or Static. Since we're not paralyzed, I can outspeed Florges and one-shot her with a critical Psycho Cut. Judging by how quickly the HP went down though, I'm guessing the crit wasn't necessary. Last out is Aerodactyl, and even though he gets the boost from Ancient Power, he can't really do much to me, meaning I finally beat the triple rival battle. Thank goodness that's done. Route 20 goes by without much issue, so it's on to the Ice Gym. Because Inkay has Superpower, it's not really a problem, so it's time to take on Wulfric, the gym leader. First though, I think it's time to review Inkay's stats. Even though Special Defense is the stat being raised by her nature, it still isn't over 100, and it's not like the stats that are that much over 100. Inkay can't level up much more, so I might have to resort to a luck-based strategy for the Elite Four. That's a matter for another time though. For now, let's focus on Wulfric. He starts off with Snow Bomba, so Hail's in effect the entire battle. Even though I'm 20 levels higher, Superpower still isn't a one-shot. He uses Ice Beam, but it doesn't freeze, so I'm good. Wulfric then heals, but because I have the boost from Superpower, the next one defeats him. Next up is Cryogonal, who uses Confuse Ray, and wouldn't you know it, Inkay immediately hits herself in confusion. Between that and the Hail, Cryogonal easily finishes me off with Ice Beam. I'm confident that if I get good enough luck to have Confuse Ray missed, then I'll have a decent shot at this battle. So, I battle a few more times, and eventually I get a run where Inkay's Quick Claw activates, letting her kill Cryogonal before it can do anything to her. That works too. Last down is Avalugg, but Superpower isn't a one-shot. He just uses Curse though, so he doesn't do anything to me. Superpower put him in healing range, but because he has Ice Body, he gets out of healing range, allowing me to finish him off with Superpower. Well, that took longer than expected. I've got all 8 badges, so all that's left that's worth mentioning is Serena, the Elite Four, and the Champion, right? Well, no, actually. Before I even enter Victory Road, I have to take on Ace Trainer Robbie, who's blocking the way. He starts off with a Carbink, who is a Fairy type with high defense. Luckily, it's also part Rock type, so Superpower is neutral. Even though it's known for being a defensive Pokemon, it still almost took me out. Next out is Raichu, but because Inkay's Quick Claw activated, she took him out. Last out is Kingdra, but even though Inkay's Quick Claw activated again, she still went down to a Dragon Pulse. Well, Carbink was almost a 2-shot, so maybe with another level or 2 I can have more HP for Raichu. Grinding here takes forever. I'll just skip this hour of footage and go on to the winning attempt. On this attempt, I'm at level 80, and Carbink is finally a 2-shot, so I can go on to Raichu with a decent amount of health. He outspeeds, of course, but Inkay tanks the Thunderbolt. Last up is Kingdra. I use Night Slash because I have the black glasses equipped and for the increased crit chance. And what do you know, it crit, meaning I can finally move on to the battles that I was actually worried about. There's not much to talk about on Victory Road, except, of course, the final battle with Serena, so I'll just skip ahead to that. Just like always, she leads with Meowstic. Inkay's Quick Claw activates, but she uses Fake Out, so it doesn't matter. Disarming Voice doesn't do all that much anymore, and hey, I can finally one-shot her. Next out is Altaria, and although she has Dazzling Gleam, I end up winning the exchange with Night Slash. Next is Greninja though, and he outspeeds and finishes me off with Dark Pulse. You know what that means? More grinding! One level higher, Altaria can actually be a 2-shot with Night Slash, so when Dark Pulse doesn't flinch, I can actually get past Greninja. Flareon is out next, but he's a 1-shot with Superpower. Last out is Absol, but he has Quick Attack, so he finishes me off. I guess I need to change my strategy. I finally decided to replace Pluck with Hypnosis. I probably won't need a Flying type move anymore, and if I do, there's always the respawning Heart Scales on the beach part of Route 8. After a couple of attempts, Hypnosis lands on Altaria, and instead of sitting there and taking it like the last time it happened, Serena decides to switch Altaria out. I guess she has Serene Grace or something. Anyway, that means I get to use Superpower on Greninja, so my attack is up for Altaria. Serena sends her back out, but even with the attack buff, she still isn't a one-shot. Inkay does survive Dazzling Gleam though, so there's still a chance. Flareon's still a one-shot, so all that's left is Absol. For some reason though, he didn't use Quick Attack, meaning Serena has been taken down once and for all. Alright, it's time for the final battles, the Elite Four and the Champion. Before I begin though, here's Inkay's stats again. I just wanted to reaffirm that Inkay has incredibly bad stats. I mean, these might not look all that bad, but remember that Inkay is level 85. If this goes poorly, there's not much room to grind. I might end up having to rely on luck-based strategies. Make your best guesses on whether I can win or not. Let's do this. After testing the waters a bit, I decide that Cybold will probably be the easiest to take down. The only reason I can lose, really, is if his Clawitzer's Water Pulse confuses me. Sadly, that's what happened on my practice attempts, but it's looking like he might be the best start. Okay, time for the first real attempt. Clawitzer is a two-shot with Superpower, which is why I can get hit by Water Pulse. In this attempt, he does confuse me, however I break through every time. Next out is Barbarical, but he goes down in one Superpower. Third out is Starmie, and although it outspeeds, it goes for Light Screen, meaning it's an easy one-shot with Night Slash. Last out is Gyarados, but Inkay outspeeds, meaning Cybold goes down. The next Elite Four member turned out to be a bit harder to figure out. I thought that Malva might be a good candidate, so I tried her next. She sends out Pyroar first, and although she deals significant damage with Flamethrower, she goes down in one Superpower. Next is Talonflame, who also deals significant damage, this time with Flare Blitz. Inkay survives though, and because of the black glasses, she takes Talonflame out. Third out is Torkoal, and although she uses Earthquake, Inkay's defense has been raised so much that it doesn't do much. Last out is Chandelure, who outspeeds and finishes me with Flamethrower. Honestly, Chandelure's special attack stat is so high that she probably could have taken me down for full health. I guess I've got to figure something else out. After numerous attempts at various levels, I finally decide to try someone else. Drasna was who I tried first. Dragalge isn't a one-shot yet though, and she has an Altaria, who we learned recently can be a bit of a pain. One level higher though, and Dragalge becomes a one-shot. Inkay can survive Altaria, but out next is Noivern, who could withstand a couple of Night Slashes and finish me off with Dragon Pulse. This isn't looking good. Finally, I decide to try and fight Wickstrom. While he's the Steel-type Elite Four member, he has two Pokemon that are rather problematic. First out is Klefki, who is part Fairy-type and knows Dazzling Gleam. Luckily, Inkay can survive it, but next out is Scizor. Scizor is the reason I didn't try fighting Wickstrom earlier, as it has Stab X Scissor. Luckily though, I outspeed and one-shot him. Third is Probopass, and although he deals some damage with Flash Cannon, he goes down in a couple of superpowers because he has 30. Last out is Aegislash, and knowing he would likely go for King Shield first, I use Hypnosis. It hits, so Aegislash goes down easily. Well, that's two Elite Four members I could consistently beat. Might have to grind a bit for the other ones, though. I only grinded one level before finally using my rare candies, so now I'm level 92. Knowing I'm at a much higher level now, I decide to take on Malva again. Pyroar's still faster than me, but Flamethrower doesn't burn me, so she goes down easily. Talonflame's second, but between the recoil from Flare Blitz and my Night Slash, she goes down too. Torkoal's out third, but she's more of a defensive Pokemon, so she can't do much to me. Finally, Chandelure's out, and at level 92, I can finally outspeed her. 3 down, 1 to go. Drasna's the only one standing between me and the champion now. After grinding out attempts, I'm at level 94. Let's see if I can beat her yet. Dragalge's a non-issue, so it's on to Altaria. She is extremely luck-based though. If she goes for Cotton Guard or hits with Sing, then it's pretty much over for me. Luckily, on this attempt, she just uses Moonblast, so I can take her out. Next up is Noivern again, and I've decided that I need to use Hypnosis on her in order to beat her. On this attempt, Hypnosis hits, and she stays asleep for long enough for me to defeat her without any damage other than the first Dragon Pulse she gets off. Last up is Dredigan, who is definitely a two-shot with Psycho Cut. I can't use Superpower or Night Slash because she has Rough Skin. Then she goes for Revenge, but miraculously I survive on 8 HP. Another Psycho Cut finishes her off, meaning it's finally time to take on the champion. On this run, Drasna was the second Elite Four member I took on. Thus, when I get to the Antha, I'm at level 95. There's not much room to improve, so if I can't beat her now, I'm in big trouble. Without further ado, let's begin. Her first Pokemon is Hawlucha, who outspeeds Inkay and uses X-Scissor, a quad-effective move. Miraculously, I managed to survive it with a decent amount of HP remaining. She goes down in one Psycho Cut. Next out is Tyrantrum, and I outspeed him and get a one-shot with a critical superpower. Third out is Goodra, but she's an easy one-shot with superpower. Fourth out is Aurora's, but he's quad weak to superpower, so he goes down without a fight. Fifth out is Gourgeist, but she goes down with a critical Night Slash. I'm not sure if that was required. Last out though is the one I've been worried about, Gardevoir. Diantha Mega evolves her, but she's no match for a thrice boosted Night Slash, meaning she goes down and I win the run. Before I begin the outro, I should probably mention the battle with AZ that plays before the credits. Torkoal goes down in 2 superpowers, but not before burning me with Lava Plume. This is off to a great start. Thankfully, both Golurk and Sigilyph are still one-shots with Night Slash, meaning now I've beaten every required trainer and therefore won the run. That was way harder than I thought it would be. I thought it would be interesting at least because of Contrary, but I didn't realize how bad Inkay's stats were. Level 95 is way too high of a level to be at by the end. I know it's partially my fault for going with an Inkay with such a bad nature, but I still ended up completing the challenge, so I guess it doesn't matter. This was my first Pokemon Challenge video, so let me know your thoughts and constructive criticisms in the comments below. I haven't decided yet what my next challenge will be, but I kinda want to do a sequel to one of my previous challenge videos. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, goodbye.